Ian Kirkpatrick, warm welcome to Auckland.
Thank you, Wood.
Nice to have you here. Tell us about your early sporting career, which I gather involved a little bit more of things like athletics and boxing and maybe a bit of pole vault rather than rugby.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I guess going to Kings was probably made me. It sort of went from being a small country primary school to the big smoke as it was, but it was just the opportunity that it gave to us, the coaching and the competition, I suppose, being in Auckland just led to, had to be good for you, and so I grabbed it with open arms, and so I gave everything a crack, really. I not that I'd been to Kings before I went up there, but having brothers gone there before me, I just about knew what was going to happen, and how it worked, and the seniority thing was quite strong in those days, and it was, if you didn't partake in sport and you're a little bloke, it probably wasn't the greatest place to be. So it was difficult for some, but for me it just made me, and I just took everything as it came along and tried everything, and I've never had coaching like it. So I did athletics, I hurdled, I sprinted, I did the pole vault, did a bit of field events, thrown in, and then came the winter, and it was of course rugby. And my first year playing rugby at Kings, I actually played as a prop, which I wasn't that impressed with. But you did what you're told, and luckily it didn't last too long, and I ended up in the loose forwards and played most of my rugby at number 8 actually at school, including 3 years in the first 15 and a couple of years in the Auckland Secondary School still.
It wasn't long after that, 3 or 4 years, you were an All Black in Fred Allen's side, going to the UK in '67.
Yeah.
Was that a bit of a frightening experience to contemplate?
I wouldn't say frightening, but it came very quickly for me, and so it took me by surprise, I've got to say. It just all happened within probably a month of. The whole thing started when I went down to Canterbury at the start of that 1967 season, and that was probably February. By April I was in the army, and I tried to get out of the army and defer it, but I couldn't, so I had to spend the winter at Burnham, which meant going into the Southern Alps, or the foothills of the Southern Alps, and that was not a great experience in the middle of winter, I can tell you. So my rugby time in the army was pretty limited, to be honest. The organisation there was pretty poor. It was nothing like Wairau. Evidently it was very well organised rugby-wise, but Burnham wasn't. So occasionally I got out and played for my club at Rangiora, which wasn't that often. And so I didn't really get out of the army till August, and somehow thrown in was the town country match in Canterbury, which is really a Canterbury trial. And somehow I got on the Canterbury team and played the odd game, and I was still in the army. I remember being picked up. We went down to play mid-Canterbury, which is an annual game early on in the season. I was actually picked up at the gates of Burnham, and my army gear. I've never been so embarrassed in all my life. Anyway, that was over fairly quickly, and then from there I somehow got into the New Zealand junior trials in Hamilton and New Plymouth, and we ended up playing Taranaki, and in the trials I was a number 8, but they made me jump at number 2 in the line-out, and I marked a short prop, and he wasn't a great problem getting a line-out ball, and they put me lock with Peter Whiting, who I played against when I was at Kings, and he was at Auckland Grammar, and so him and I locked the scrum against Taranaki, and I thought, well, that's the end of my sort of any ambition of sort of going on as a rugby player, because lock wasn't my position. I'd never played there before, and it didn't really feel that good. Anyway, I gave it everything I had, but and then from there they went into North Island, South Island trials, because we were supposed to go on to South Africa in 1967, no marriage, no tour, so they rescheduled a shortish tour to the UK. Instead of being 3.5, 4 months, it was about 6 weeks. And so anyway, they had trials for that, and they had trials in Palmy, like they normally do, Palmerston North, and trials in Christchurch. And there's only one game in Christchurch and 2 in Palmerston North, and they played on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And then from there, they picked the main trials in Wellington, final trial, early trial, and I happened to be in that final trial. I wonder how the hell I ever got in there. And then they read the team out afterwards, and I got in there, and I was even more surprised how the hell I got in that. And so it all happened very quickly for me. But marvellous experience.
How did you cope with Fred Allen? Were
Oh,
you a bit nervous about him?
I was nervous about the whole thing, to be honest. Having the players around me like I had, the likes of BJ Lahore and Pine Tree and Ken Gray, Waka Nathan, and so it goes on. And it was just, it was mind-boggling a little bit. But I just thought, well, you've got to take your chances. And I was picked as a number 8 with BJ, so I knew I wasn't going to play many games, which is fine. I was just rapt to be there, and so it came along as we sort of went along on that tour, and we went to France halfway through, and because of injuries, there were 3 games prior to the test match. 2 sort of, they used to have selections, southwest, east-west, east, or whatever they were then, and maybe I think France B thrown in, and then the test, and I happened to play the whole lot and play those first 3, and then got picked for the test, and so that's going through pretty quickly, but that's how it all happened for me, and no, it was fantastic. I was supposed to put out Kel Tremaine, but to be honest, KR wasn't 100.
Right.
He had a tendon problem.
Okay.
And so he was probably at best about 85%. So they picked me instead, and
still
great.
Absolutely. And you got your debut, and then the following.
I actually broke my nose in that game, which meant I wasn't available for the next one. I wouldn't have been picked anyway. Right. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have. That was against Scotland a week later. Well,
injury the next year was the interesting part. When you weren't injured this time, it was Brian Lahore who broke his thumb, and you went on against Australia.
Oh, an Aussie. Yeah, yes. That's right. Well,
wasn't that the first time subs were allowed?
Dead right. I was the first international to come on as a replacement. I mean, they always had replacements, but they were only any good up to Friday night.
Yes.
Or if someone got ill on Friday night, Saturday morning, everyone was fit. That was it. You never got stripped, obviously. But on that tour, we played the Junior Wallabies in Adelaide. It was a night game under terrible conditions, and I broke my thumb, which meant, being a short tour that they were going to send me home, I said to Fred Allen, I said, Fred, I don't want to go home. And he said, well, it just depends how long your thumb's going to be. Well, it was in plaster for about 8 days. It should have been about 3 weeks. But I got an X-rayed in Sydney when I came back. We went back for the test. And they said, I think we can take it off. So I took, the plaster was taken off. Someone said, because in those days there was no doctors or physios, and someone said, we were staying in Manly, and some of the local Aussies said, there's a shot putter who shot putted for Aussie in the 64 Olympic Games in Tokyo. He said he's a physio come manipulator and whatever, and so I went and saw him, and he gave me massage, and it just made a huge difference. Anyway, because of that, and I was cleared to play or able to play, they picked me as a reserve. So, it was the first time that, and of course, in those days, you didn't come off unless you had a broken back. Yeah. Because, that was the sort of thing that you never gave anyone else the chance.
No, well, you certainly made your mark when you came on, didn't you?
BJ actually,
three tries.
First of all, he broke his thumb, and then he pulled a hammy.
Oh.
So he was gone. So, and the warm-up was walking down the steps of the member stand that's still there.
Yes.
Still the green roof at the Sydney Cricket Ground, still there. The warm-up was going down the stairs, and man, it was an unusual experience. I don't think I'd ever come on in any game before, to be honest, let alone Test match.